to the first item under new business, and that is item A, refusal of tax deeds. Before we have Ms. Melcher go through the list for us, I want to bring to your attention that I did some research today, and I sent to you through Doré some background information on the law and the RSA with regard to tax deeds. What is your responsibility as a governing body, and what are your options, and what are the consequences if you should refuse a tax deed or if you should accept a tax deed. So if you refuse a tax deed, it doesn't mean that's the end of it. What happens is the penalties and the interest continue to accrue. And if the conditions should change, it can always come back to the council, and you can now say, well, we want to accept the tax deed. So if you refuse it, you can refuse it for a number of reasons. It can be environmentally contaminated. There might be, in the material I sent you, it could be because of the owner has died and there hasn't been a chance to kind of determine what the new ownership would be. There's a host of reasons you'll find in that information. If you do decide to accept the tax deed, then the city becomes liable for everything. And they have to adhere to the laws as if they were a landlord. So there are some repercussions either way. So tonight is a list you have in front of you of recommendations of the city administration's recommendation, which is to refuse the tax deed. That does not mean that you have to do that. You could choose to accept the tax deed. Yes, Councilor Kolaski.
Madam Mayor, I have a conflict of interest with one of the parcels. May I be excused?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So are there any questions before we have Ms. Melcher come to the podium?
I just have a question. So as you can see that they're starred based on reasoning.
Yeah.
Do we have specifics on what information they have on what led them to believe this, or if there's any documentation?
Yes. So in front of you on your desk tonight, you got a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, basically, that says not only the location, the map lot, the owner, the land value, building value, total assessed value, the tax deed owed year, and then the total owed for all taxes, including interest and penalties. So you will see that on their on the city administration's recommendation of refusing this tax deeds, several of the properties are on payment plans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm talking about more the potential hazardous sites.
Yes.
What information do we have that led us to that conclusion?
We will hear from them.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
And are there any other questions? Okay. All right.
So I'm not sure if you want me to go through the list, or?
I think if you want to group the ones that are on payment plans and just explain to the city council.
Okay. So the ones that are the mobile homes, which is the 8 Upham Place, 34 Madison Place, 5 Dennison Ave. Those are mobile homes which are situated in parks, and on those 3 properties we currently have payment plans, which they have all been to current on. So that's why we've just suggested to let them continue to do that, because eventually they'll get off this list. 35 Upham, there's a note next to that. She has recently passed away. So rather than take it while they're trying to sort that out, we thought it would be a good idea to put it on the list, give them some time to settle things, and look at it in a little while to see how that shakes out. 33 to 35 Chapel Grove, they are also on a payment plan. That's several buildings that make up that one lot. They'll have that paid off in a couple of weeks, but we just wanted to make sure that we put it on the list here. And then 39 Central Street,
Now, she's moving from the payment plans to
Yeah.
those that have environmental issues.
so 39 Central Street, as we, most of the council know, that is a vacant building that the city has put a lot of money into. We have this on the list for the moment because Nancy is doing some research on that one and the Winter Street property to see exactly the 39 Central is a documented hazardous site. We're just doing a little more digging into that because there's a possibility that we still may be able to take that, and there may be things available to the city to clean it up that's not necessarily available to the average homeowner. So there'll be some more information to come on that one. Winter Street, there is a file at the Planning and Zoning Office that leads us to believe that there is some potential hazardous, but we do not exactly know for sure. So we're going to see if we can find anyone that's familiar with the area that maybe could fill us in a little bit. So there will be also in the future some information on that one once we get that resolved. And then the 2 Mulberry Street properties are as well documented hazardous sites that I think are still in the works of being cleaned up and worked on, and so that's why that's on the list.
Any questions so far? Yes.
Yeah, how is it going to proceed, and using what kind of contractor to determine what's going on with the Winter Street property? Is there going to be a company doing testing, boring, anything like that on the property?
We haven't gotten that far. Yeah, we're still trying to, first of all, see if we can find any history on it. And then I believe we can have the soil tested, right? If Nancy might be able to.
The reason we're questioning this is because our file, as well as assessing file, has a note of hazardous waste at that location, like back in the late 80s, but we don't know what happened then. So it's really just, we need to follow up on it.
Did you check on DES One Stop Shop?
Yeah.
Because when I was looking at this, there wasn't a specific address. So I went there, and they have my gosh, it must be 7 or 8 addresses listed.
Right.
They're all closed or deactivated.
Right. I just couldn't find this one, and it was under a different name earlier when we saw the note in the file. So this is one that I think we'll be getting more information for you to make a decision on.
When do you anticipate that happening?
It's going to be a couple of weeks.
And the reason why I'm asking, because it's, right now, we've got back taxes, $11,345.53. So it would be in our best interest to get this resolved as soon as possible so that we can go ahead and move forward with selling it or doing something with it. It's vacant land, right?
It is. Yep. There used to be a building on it, and I gather that the note indicated that whatever was done in the building created a problem. And it looks like DES did get involved, but we couldn't find anywhere what happened after somebody called DES. So we just want to confirm that before you take it.
So would you be ready by 11 July, or would you want to push it back a little bit?
I wouldn't mind pushing it back to the next meeting, just to give us some time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions with regard to that Winter Street property? Counselor Stowe?
On the Winter Street property, what's the suspected hazardous materials that you think or you might know, or?
Director Merrill, you might want to just stay up until this.
What they think is the hazardous. I don't remember
At
what
which-
that note,
at
at
which-
the Winter Street. I don't remember what that file said.
I believe that there was a business there that was It was recycling machinery of some kind. So but it didn't, the note didn't tell us exactly what it was. We kind of had a sense of the use, but really not a sense of what the problem was.
So we really don't know what it was?
We
Would it be,
don't.
machining coolants, oils,
It's kind of
heavy
what I'm
metals?
thinking, yeah, like small engine stuff.
but we really don't know?
No.
And that's why we're gonna try to find maybe some of the neighbors that have been there for years that maybe could fill us in.
Do we know when the actual building came down?
It was prior to the notes we have in the 80s, so I'm thinking early 80s, maybe.
I was gonna say, I don't recall ever having a building there.
Yeah.
There may be a neighbor out there that would remember more about what the business was and that would, and any names, because if we're looking, this doesn't have an address. If you look on One Stop, as you noted, it just doesn't appear, and there may have been a different name, the name of the company, the business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, well, we look forward to getting this one resolved so we can move on. Other questions? Okay, in looking up the 39 Central address, I know that this has been, the first report on the DES one-stop shop site was dated January 24th, 2014. And that's basically an assessment of what happened, which is a leaking fuel. And then I went to the summary of the second report, which was dated June 1st, 2015, and it basically says that it's a above-ground storage tank decommissioning summary. It also says, though, in the report, it is Geo Insights, and that's the company that did the remediation. It's understanding that the structure will ultimately be raised by the city. So the city had paid already for a hazardous assessment to be done, and I think that was what was done in 2014. And then they came in, and from the report, it appears as if the issue had been resolved. But they go on to say limitations and expectations in their reports. Well, before that, their conclusions and recommendations. Based upon field observations and laboratory results, it appears that the former 575-gallon fuel oil, AST, did release an unknown quantity of petroleum hydrocarbon constituents to the surface and subsurface. Based upon our understanding of the New Hampshire DES regulatory requirements and the findings of this AST decommissioning assessment, Geo Insight recommends that additional assessment and/or remedial activities associated with the release from the ACT be performed following the raising of the structure. So they wrote this, they did their work, and then there's an expectation from their standpoint that this property was going to be raised. So my question is, and this was 2015, why are we continuing to delay this? Because the back taxes, I mean, it's been abandoned since 2005. And the back taxes on that is $141,258.28. I just don't see a compelling reason why we have to continue refusing this tax deed. But I'd like to hear from the city administration, city council on this. And if you'd like to see the report, if the council would. Yes, Councilor Pope?
I just want to see the report.
Okay. Director Merrill, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
I'm really not certain why in 2015 they talked about the city raising the building, because at that time, as a matter of fact, before Geo Insight started their work, the decision had already been made by the council to only raise the back wooden section of the building and not the brick section of the building. So I'm not certain where that miscommunication occurred. The only hazardous waste we're aware of is the oil from the oil tanks. That could mean going forward some groundwater monitoring wells. But there's nothing else that's You know, it's not an open brownfield site with lots of other stuff going on. It is just exactly what it is oil from the oil tank. Quite a bit of it, but.
It's been boarded up and vacant for so long. The chief of police is here. So, Chief, do you have any comments about, I mean, what are any safety concerns? I mean, a vacant building for so long can be a attractive place to.
Specific to this building?
Yeah.
It was great when the wood structure was torn down because it was terrible, it was unsafe, and now that it's just the brick structure, it's sealed up pretty good. I mean, we check it, we're there, and we have several shelters around it, so we're around that building quite a bit. I mean, we do have squatting problems at times. They were exaggerated when that building was in the condition it was. Not as much now. So that's the Reader's Digest version of it. So.
What would be, from any of the administrators and city manager, what would be the concerns if we took this deed at this point in time, rather than refuse it?
My concerns are that I don't have a clear understanding of what the liability will be, and I have other liabilities that are more well-known and quantifiable. So, I mean, to me, punting on this one would be my recommendation, because, like I said, we just have other obligations at the moment. Even if we took this, I don't know that I would necessarily have the resources to deal with it right away.
Is there an assessment from the Historic District Commission about whether this is part of what is the historic significance? Would have been a beautiful building at one time.
Yeah, and they weighed in during the discussion on raising the building initially, because we talked initially about just taking the whole thing down.
Okay.
Because it had been broken into so many times, it was pretty bad inside. So the recommendation was just to take the wooden addition off the back, and that's what we did.
So what did the Historic District Commission want to
They
do?
wanted to keep the original brick building.
Did they have any idea of any plans as to how they'd restore it?
No, they talked about just mothballing it, I suppose, until somebody wanted to do something with it. But they didn't want it taken down.
So we're in the situation of, we have a vacant building that's not getting better with time.
And we don't know where the owner is. We haven't known where the owner is for 4 or 5 years. I mean, it doesn't mean you still can't take it and sell it at tax deed. It just means that the notice is a little different.
Yeah. Assistant Mayor Dammer?
Yeah, we've already moved that one of the properties, the Winter Street property, would have a follow-up report to us in July. Can I suggest that perhaps this property have the same thing, with something from the Historic District Commission in writing?
Yep.
And a recommendation, go, no go, what to do with it?
Right. I think maybe a call into Geo Insight to find out sort of what would be required of the city if it changed hands.
Yeah, because it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to just keep going on and on and on with this one anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No. Okay, great. So how does the council feel about the Assistant Mayor's recommendation?
I think that's a good idea.
Like that? Okay, and is the Historic District Commission meeting between now and?
It's a meeting tomorrow night.
Okay, can you bring that to them,
Yeah.
Councilor Pope?
You're welcome. I was going to ask if you wanted me to, so.
Yep, and
good.
if you'd like to take that report,
Yep.
that's fine. Yes, Councilor Stone?
While we're on the topic of this building, I definitely think that we shouldn't dilly-dally too much longer on it, since
Yep.
it's problematic in itself, and the problem's not gonna go away by just passing it year to year. If we're gonna be stuck with it, we should just take it, be done with it, move on.
Yep. Other thoughts from the council with regard to 39 Central? Nope. Okay. It would be nice if we could, Counselor Pope, when you speak to the Historic District Commission about this, if you could get, if they could work on what they see the historical significance of that building to be, what the value is from that perspective.
Yeah, I don't know that you'll get this tomorrow night since our
No.
agenda's already set, but
No, if they could work on that,
I'm typing an email right now to request information, to have it put on the next agenda.
great. Thank you. Thank you. So that leaves the final, I think, on this list, the TopStone building. If you go to DES One Stop Shop, you will find a 505-page report about everything that's been going on in that building. The owners, to the best of my knowledge, and Director Merrill would be more familiar with this than I, and that is they continue to do due diligence with the contamination and more well sites, but would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, as you mentioned, there is a very recent report that was just finished on the site. There are some areas of the site where contamination, after many years, there's been groundwater monitoring wells there for a long time, and after many years, when they were testing them, they saw some changes that were going in the opposite direction of the way they should go. And so this report really, I think, suggests that some of that contamination, there may be a new source, and it may be coming in from off-site. In other words, it's not being created by anybody in that building itself at this time. So the request has been made, a recommendation to DES to do a couple monitoring wells, which they would do at the city's request. That would be off-site in the roads, actually, in the roadway, so that they can start pinpointing what the source is and what's going on there. So it's very ongoing.
And the owners of the building have been very cooperative, it's my understanding, with regard to trying to
Yep.
not only ascertain the source of this pollutant, but also deal with the pollutant on their own property.
Yep.
So, I know the amount of back taxes is significant, as you see listed in front of you, but I want to remind the council that if we were to take this tax deed, the city automatically becomes responsible for the continuation of the cleanup until it's resolved. So that may pale in comparison to the numbers that are owed in back taxes. And Director Merrill, if you want to speak to that as well.
I think that for this particular property, one of the big issues is we really don't know at this point what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So it's not just you have a known quantity and you know what you need to do, which may be what we end up doing on Central Street. You know, you have a known issue, you've got to, you know how you have to abate it, what you have to do. This property, at this point in time, I think we're all very unclear about what's going on. So it makes it even sort of more uncertain about, what the city might be walking into if they take ownership of the building. So I just wish, I wish that I could be a little more definite, but this is really, it really is ongoing, so.
There is excuse me, Mr. McNutt?
I just wanted to add that when I first came in and this building was presented to me, there was a tripart ownership structure. And the managing director suffered a serious health issue and was no longer a viable manager of that building. And the two other partners were kind of silent partners. They were just investors. When they learned that their managing director was no longer capable, they stepped in. And that's who the city is dealing with now. They've become much, much more responsive and responsible to the city's, needs and requests. I believe that they are acting responsibly with the state, with the environmental issues, they're continuing to pay for those things. The costs are substantial. I think it is highly likely that the city will they will enter into a payment plan with the treasurer and the city clerk, and this property will become a paying property within the city. That they are on the road to correcting this problem on their own, which is what we want to see from any private owner of a property. They're taking personal responsibility.
And the penalties is, as we refuse the tax deed, if you recall, they continue to accrue penalties and an 18% fee. So it is in their best interest to get this issue resolved and start a payment plan on their taxes as well. So again, should we change our mind on this, if should any of the conditions change, it's brought back to the city council. Any other questions with regard to the TopStone building? If anybody's interested, there's an executive summary I have here tonight about what is going on as far as the cleanup efforts are. And if you really want to read in detail and go well beyond my understanding in geology and science, there's a 505-page report on DES One Stop Shop. So feel free to read it at your leisure. Any other questions for Ms. Melcher? So I think we've made some adjustments to the motion, so the motion's going to have to be adjusted because we're going to have the two properties come back either July, and before we make that motion, there is discussion that we may not have a second meeting in July. At least that's the request from the city administration. I need to find out from the council if you would like to do that. If that's the case, and I don't believe the city manager believes there's anything pressing that would require a second meeting in July,
Not at this time.
okay, then for sure we would be meeting the August, I think it's 8th, August 8th. Yes. So you would modify your motion, I believe, to bring back those two properties to the city council for reconsideration on August 8th. Does that make sense? Okay, who would like to be the one to read the motion that's in front of you and make that modification? Mr. Mayor Dameron.
Yeah. Motion to refuse tax deed. The city council, having reviewed the list of impending tax deed parcels as presented by the city's tax collector, hereby notifies the tax collector that she shall not execute a deed of the real estate to the city for the following parcels because the council has determined in its judgment that acceptance would subject the city to undesirable obligations or liability risks, including the potential liability as an owner of property under state and federal law, which imposes strict liability on owners for environmental impairment of the real estate involved. Map and lot number first, 159-56-17, 8 Upham Place, 57-21-32, 34 Madison Place, 128-9, 33-35 Chapel Grove Place, 159-56-13, 35 Upham Place, 129-141-12, 5 Dennison Avenue, and 131-30 Mulberry Street, 131-29, 101 Mulberry Street. The City Council further authorizes the tax collector or other city official to enforce all such tax liens upon the above listed properties as provided by RSA 80:50 and through any other remedy provided by law.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, that motion was made by Assistant Mayor Dameron, seconded by Councilor Kier. All those in favor?
I think for the record, there would be a follow-up motion that should be made in regard to 39 Central Street and Winter Street, just noting that we've removed them from the refused tax deed list this evening, but also that we direct that information regarding their disposition be brought back to the council, let's say the first meeting in August.
Okay, so, but we need to do one motion first.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay. So all those in favor of the first motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then,
Opposed.
you're opposed.
Who
Counselor Stone. And then,
All right, make a motion that we remove the following properties from the motion to refuse tax deed before us this evening, that we remove 119-3.
If you didn't read them in as being refused, then we're not refusing them.
That's correct, but I want to put it on record that we want an answer back regarding their disposition at the first meeting in August. That's kind of why I'm going through the words, I guess. That the disposition for 119-354, 39 Central Street, and 73-1 Winter Street be further investigated by city staff with a resolution and proposed action brought back to the council at the first meeting in August of 2018.
is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, so that motion was made by Assistant Mayor Dameron, seconded by Counselor Kier. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, so you want 39 Central and Winter Street to come back to the, be taken off the refused tax deed list and to be brought back at the first meeting in August.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes, Counselor Stone.
I'd actually like to be able to take a look at that report on the Mulberry Street property. As you said, it was 590 pages before
505.
505.
To be exact.
So since it's such an in-depth report, I think I'd like to take a look at that before going either way with it. And maybe adding that to the other properties, since we're going to be revisiting them anyways at the next meeting.
So that would require
Motion.
amending the motion, yeah.
Yep.
Was there a, everybody voted in favor?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you.
Is there a second to that?
Wait a minute, hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Don't wait too
Sorry,
fast here.
Sorry.
Because that's a very in-depth report, apparently, if it's 505 pages.
Yep.
Yeah.
there's
We have
this-
another motion on the table now?
There's not one been made yet officially.
I would like to make a motion to add the 131-30, 131-29 to also be revisited on the next council meeting.
Is there a second to that?
Yes, I'll second.
All right, 131-30 and 131-29, and you want to do what with them?
Put them in the same status as the Winter Street property and the Central Street property.
You want to remove them from the refused tax deed list?
Correct.
Was there a second?
Yes, the second was Counselor O'Hearn.
Thank you.
So basically, for the council's understanding, what Counselor Stone is suggesting is that the council just have more time to review the report and the executive, and/or the executive summary of the report. Mr. Mayor Dameron.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. We've refused to take the tax deed, at least on the first motion this evening. If we examine those properties in further detail regarding anything to be gained from 500-plus pages of a report, there's nothing that prohibits us from taking the tax deed for those properties a couple of months from now. Is that correct?
Right.
So I don't see why we have to remove them from the list this evening. We could examine them with the other properties first meeting in August. And if it was felt proper then, we could direct the city clerk and the tax collector to prepare a motion for us to refuse the tax deed at the next meeting. So What I'm saying is I don't know that we need a motion to do as you were suggesting.
Okay.
Now, want us to retract our motion?
If you'd like us, what he's saying is correct. We're not, in the other two cases, we're saying a date certain that we want it brought back to the council because there's going to be more information that the city doesn't currently know. There's no anticipation of new information coming from this one on Mulberry. The only thing that you're concerned with is having the time to go through the report.
Digest the report.
Right. So,
And it could be added to the agenda at that point.
is everybody comfortable with that? Having the motion retracted, or Councilor Pope?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with having the motion retracted. I would like to see what's in the report. I'm always kind of hesitant about taking properties that have hazardous waste, known hazardous waste issues. The reason being is we now own a parking garage that someone gave us a hazmat site years ago, the old Sawtooth, which was all full of cyanide and such, and of course, the city accepted that and took ownership of it, and we got to see the brownfields grants and all that on that situation. Cost us much more than the free gift was worth. We almost took a free gift of some land out there on Winter Street, which is now Lowe's. Thank God Lowe's went in there and did a $2.5 million cleanup. That one I think we refused tax deed on several times before Lowe's finally came and saved us. So, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing the report, but I don't want to jump too fast on hazmat sites because on my time in the council, we had to do the cleanup of taking ownership of these things. So that's just my thoughts on the deal. There's several $1 million we could have been on the hook for, and
Yes.
are still paying for one of those grants.
We have to,
And so I'm real cautious about that. And so, I mean, I know there's some background on that building some people would like to deal with, but I don't care what that background is. I just don't want taxpayers to be on the hook for that.
right. And before you, are you responding to Councilor Pope?
No, just to the topic in general.
Okay. Go ahead.
I just wanted to remind folks that we do have a responsible party that is working with the city and the state. Even as of a year and a half ago, that wasn't really the case. So I think if I was somebody spending my own personal money to try to rectify this situation as a responsible property owner, but I now see the jeopardy that the city might take the property from me, that's more incentive to just walk away. And so I just want to remind folks that we have a viable property owner that the state and the city are dealing with, and they are taking the responsible actions. So it's more likely in the city's best interest to work through the existing property owner.
Councilor Stone?
But we don't have any guarantees they don't do that at any point in time down the road, do we?
But if the circumstances should change, then the
Right.
council
They-
has the right to
Take it.
to
But
take it.
currently, we're looking at a assessed property at $670,000, and the back taxes total as of what? This month is $240,000, almost $241,000.
With all of the interests and penalties accrued.
My biggest concern, obviously, at this point, is just looking at the report and digesting it all.
And I just want you to be aware too, the total on the right is what they owe for all of their taxes, which includes the first and second quarters of 2018 that we just billed. The ones that are, so for the TopStone ones, they owe 2012, 13, and 14. Those totals right there, that's the amount that we can tax deed it for. So people can, obviously homeowner can be behind on their taxes and not in jeopardy of us deeding it. So they're not, the 240,000 is not what we would be, they don't owe that in the amount that we tax deed it. That's just everything. So the 15, 16, and 17, that's not at a point to be deeded yet. So they are, by law, can be behind those taxes and not in jeopardy of deeding. So I just wanted to,
So the last time they paid taxes was in 2011?
Well, that's so their 2011s are all paid. So they're currently on the 2012. That's what the balance is on. I believe some payments have been paid,
Since then?
yes. I just don't know what the dates are, but I believe there has been some payments once in a while.
Okay.
Yep.
So just for the council's benefit, I wanted to read you the RSA that pertains to what the governing body can do should the situation change. So I'll read it per the RSA, which is 80:38, tax deed, section 3. When a governing body has, under paragraph 2 or 2A of this RSA, served notice upon the collector, it shall not accept the deed, which is what we're doing this evening. The tax lien shall remain in effect indefinitely, retaining its priority over other liens because it's a super lien, has priority beyond the mortgage payments. The taxpayer's right of redemption as provided by RSA 80:32 shall likewise be extended indefinitely, with interest continuing to accrue at 18% as provided in that section. The tax obligation may be enforced by the municipality by suit as provided under RSA:50 and through any remedy provided by law for the enforcement of other types of liens and attachments. If at any time, in the judgment of the municipal governing body, the reasons for refusing the tax deed no longer apply, and the tax lien has not been satisfied, the governing body may instruct the collector, which in this case is Ms. Melcher, to issue the tax deed. And the collector shall do so after giving the notices required by RSA 80:38-A and 80:38-B. So that's the process. Does everybody understand? Okay. So
I think we're good.
we're good. Is there still, somebody needs to retract a motion, I believe.
So I make a motion to retract my motion.
Just retract it. Yeah.
So that motion was made by Counselor Stone and seconded by Counselor Ahern. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're just,
We just retract.
we're just.
Just
Okay, we don't need to
withdrawing.
vote? Okay, all right.
Good question.
So, yes, Counselor Ahern.
Can we get the link to that 500 thing, like sent out to the council so we don't have to go searching for it?
Sure.
And also a copy of the report you passed around that we took a quick glance at, but.
You want this? Which one?
Oh,
Scott has.
the one
Oh.
that's discussed.
I gave it back.
Oh,
That one?
No, can we, like, have that
Is there a link on
photocopied and sent out so, to all the counselors? Because I'm
Okay.
assuming at the next meeting, we're gonna
Do
have.
you want it soft copy? Because I'll just
PDF
have,
it.
yeah, just email it.
Yeah.
just email
So
it.
it's the email.
All right,
So everybody, because Councilor Zullo, I'm assuming will be back at the next meeting and.
okay. I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? So I think we've responded to what you needed this evening. And I just want the council to know that this has been a lot of effort on Ms. Melcher's part because this was something that was primarily done by Jane Taylor prior to her departure, correct?
Yes.
So thank you to you for all of the work that you did on this, on
Thank
top
you.
of everything else.
And now do why you got it today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You.
Okay. Next on the item is planning and development. Oh, I can move.